Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we are talking about when players don't show up consistently. What should you do about it? How can you handle it? This is a problem that I think a lot of GMs have, and I have to give a shout out. This was spurred by a question from Dirty Socks 1990, and they wrote me quite a long question. I'm going to read all this, and there's a little more to the question than this, but I want to read it, and I kind of want to address all of it. So here's what they said. We play monthly sessions, sad enough, but the sessions we play are from 10 hours to 17 hours, which is actually pretty cool. Those are pretty long sessions. But there's one player who is just absent a lot. The question topic for a potential video: how do you deal with players who are more absent than they join? The player always improves his behavior after 2 or 3 times absent. I already have sent some text messages, but because we don't play that often, I don't want to waste too much energy, and I want to stay more focused on the positive. And then I responded this by saying, hey, great question. I'm going to add it to my video list. And then Dirty Socks basically responded with some follow-up. And they said, yeah, but the problem about this specific player is that he has all kinds of issues. Like, for example, he often lets me know he won't be joining the session that day. And then I have to put up a session for 5 players. And it's actually needed because they are in a war type encounter, which would negatively affect and put more pressure on the other players. We have already talked in the group as well about this behavior. The other players suggested talking to the guy. Sometimes it's kind of hard to prep. Being a dad of 2 small kids, you have to prioritize with the little time you have. So dilemma. Haha, but thanks for the support. Love your content. Keep up the great work. And then they also added one more comment. To add to this, he just initiates a lot of discussion as well. If he's not around, the game improves on different aspects. And that's actually interesting to hear. It is just that it's weird how much influence he has on the flow of the game. So maybe another topic is how to prevent a player from sabotaging the session, either intentionally or unintentionally in general, with different aspects of the game. In the end, he disrupts the flow of the game. So Dirty Socks 1990, great question. And first of all, I just want to say thank you for asking this. And I want to just share a little challenge to everyone watching. If you have an answer for Dirty Socks, if you have some input, if you have some advice, please drop it in the comments. I'm going to be tagging Dirty Socks in this video, so they will probably see all the comments, and just, feel free to chime in if you have dealt with this and how you've dealt with it in the past. I love to keep the community conversation going in the comments. And if you have any video requests for me, the GM Philosopher, for future videos, please drop them in the comments. I always grab them and I add them to my list, and I just deal with them one at a time. I will say that I get a lot of comments. It's not always possible for me to respond to all comments, but I do see all of my comments. I literally read every single comment. So thank you so much for everyone for contributing and for being so supportive. And if I could get you to give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, that would also be so awesome, because like a GM who's trying to build an amazing gaming group, I'm trying to build an amazing YouTube channel. I reached 2,000 subs, and now I'm climbing my way to 5,000. And if you could give me a thumbs up and a subscribe, it helps my video get shown to more people. And I would just be so grateful for you to do that for me. Thank you so much. All right. Now let's talk about this. First of all, this is a big challenge. Okay. And there are actually 2 different aspects of this here. One of them is how to deal with the person who doesn't show up consistently, who cancels the same day and things like that, which is that's different than giving you notice, because it is hard to plan. And then the second one is someone who just takes away from the game. So this is not an altogether easy thing to deal with. I assume that this person is maybe a friend, someone you'd like to game with. You just wish that some of these problems wouldn't happen. And that's a hard situation. So first of all, I have dealt with this many times, and there's a baseline first step that's really necessary before you can actually move forward in deciding how to deal with this. And that is it worth the trouble to continue gaming with this person? Okay. So and that'll kind of give you 2 different paths, 2 different directions. If you think to yourself, well, the priority is really to keep gaming with them, I'm willing to compromise to do what it takes to make it work, but I'm going to keep gaming with them. This might be because they're a dear friend, because you love them to death, because they're great at the game table. Maybe they have a busy life, and so you want to be understanding. Maybe that they contribute way more positive than negative, and so you think to yourself, I really want to make it work. I want to. So that's one scenario. The other scenario is what I want is for the game to go well. And I'm trying to make this work with this person, even though things aren't going right. And I'll be honest, I'm coming to a point where I'm not really sure that this person is good for the game. And I may have to decide not to game with them anymore. So if that's a possibility, that's kind of the other road. It's kind of like choosing whether you're going to prioritize the player or prioritize the rest of the group in the game. And as a GM, this is actually ultimately up to you because you get to decide who gets invited to the game. Now, other players can chime in and you should listen to other players. And it sounds like the other players have chimed in with their opinions. They said they suggest talking to the guy. This sounds like a very nice common sense approach. Sounds like you have a great gaming group here who wants to be nice and stuff, but it does sound like there are a lot of problems. So here's kind of the order of like what I would consider the order of action. If you've determined that gaming with this person is the priority and you want to keep gaming with them, despite the hard things, then we want to think about this in terms of like incremental improvement. So for example, you might think to yourself, okay, well, this character, I would like them to show up on a consistent basis or to at least give me notice of when they can't be here. So you might talk to them about that. Maybe you can get that to improve by like 10% or 20%. You might not be able to get it perfect, but if you could get it to improve a little bit, then you could kind of meet in the middle of saying, okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to work out a thing with their character. I'm going to run like an arc with their character, and you can talk with them about this. You can say, hey, here's my issue. The not coming affects my game setup, my game planning. So we need to do something a little different. So for the storyline, what we're going to do is we're going to have you go on like an adventure. You're going to have a personal arc. You're going to contract a magical disease that's slowly going to fade you out of existence, and you're going to disappear to the weave. But every once in a while, the weave sends you in to help the group, to help destiny, to help fate in the mortal world. But the truth is that you are now an outsider. You're like an outside creature. You only pop in at specific times, and you don't even know when you're going to be going. The god of the weave just sends you here. So that's just an example of a kind of thing you can do to explain the popping in and popping out. Now, I've done similar things in the past. Sometimes this is relatively problematic. Sometimes it is really cool, but that could be a way to help compromise on the showing up part. Now, as for the in-game initiating discussion, taking away from the game in different aspects, that's a hard thing. That is actually really hard to do. And that's a thing where, once again, if your priority is to play with the player and to prioritize that over, like you basically don't want to kick them out. If you think to yourself kicking them out is just not an option, then okay. Then what you want to do is you really want to talk to them and you want to be very specific about the things that bother you. And if possible, try to give them specific examples. And what I would encourage you to do is to actually, the next time you run a game and you notice the player doing the types of things you're talking about here that disrupt the game or whatever, literally make yourself notes of what it is. And then you can call them or email them or text them, whatever, later in the week and say, hey, listen, I really care about you. I really love playing D&D with you. However, the group is getting better and we all care about this game. And I have to talk to you about a couple things that happened last session. And then you can be very specific and you can say, look, I really, really like having you at the games. I'm not trying to like make you feel bad. I'm not trying to like hurt your feelings or tell you you're a bad role player. I would just, it would mean so much to me if, like, for example, you didn't talk during the session about things outside the game, if you could stay focused on the plot, because when we play D&D, this is a group endeavor and we're all working together. And when one person sort of like deviates from it, this takes away from the experience for all the other players. This is very reasonable and rational. And if your friend is at all reasonable and rational, they should want to help. Now, it might not be perfect right away, but once again, it's about incremental improvement. If you can get them to get 30% better, it's like, okay, maybe you could ask them, how could I help? One thing you could do is you could say in game, you could have like a keyword or a trigger word. You could say, hey, Bob, hey, that's a super cool story, but I think we kind of want to get back to the game. Like maybe you and Bob could come to an understanding that when you say that, it basically means it's like your way of reminding them to stay focused on the game because maybe they have trouble staying focused, whatever. So these are things you can do. And I have done these things in the past for players too. These are things you can do to help with that a little bit. Now, let's talk about the other direction. It is very possible, and this is the truth of it, from what I've read in your request. And I don't know any more about your situation than this, but it is very possible that if you're dealing with a situation like this, it's highly possible that this player just isn't a good fit for your game. It sounds like from the inability to show up to the talking during the game to interrupting the flow of the game, it just sounds like this player kind of brings just a bunch of problems. I don't know if they bring enough positive to counter those problems, but here is a really good baseline for how to make a decision like this. If he takes away more than he adds, really, on a mathematical level, then there is a very fair question of why would you keep this person in the game? Obviously, to try to be nice, but there's also a responsibility we have as GMs to make sure that we protect the game and the immersion of reality for the rest of our players. And here's the thing that I learned a long time ago that I think was hard to learn, but very useful. If as a GM, you keep allowing a player to disrupt the game, or you keep allowing a player to act in a manner that takes away from the game for the other players, then you are actually hurting the game for your good players who are trying to be good players, who are really investing in the game and care about the game. And as a GM, you're kind of a leader and you kind of have a responsibility to protect the game for your players who are doing a great job, who are participating in a good way. So it's not just about this other player. It's also about your other players. And if these things take away from the game for the other players, you also have a responsibility to address it for that reason. And for that reason, you might decide, if it were just me personally, I might put up with it, but I can't put up with it because my other players, they show up on time. They have their character sheets ready. They are not disrupting the flow. It's just this one person. And when they do it, it ruins it for everyone else. So you might have a bigger burden of responsibility here in defending your other players from disruption, right? And that could take away from the game because you do only play once a month. And so it's really important to protect that time. It's a very sacred time to get together with your friends and play some good D&D, and to have someone taking away from it is not really cool. To me, that does not sound cool. And another thing is, you mentioned you are a parent with two small kids. It is hard to find the time. This is part of what got me into D&D to begin with, was the fact that I was a young dad with young kids. I didn't have a lot of money to go out. Even if I had money to go out, I couldn't go out because someone had to watch the kids. My wife and I were at home. We wanted to do things together. We had no babysitter. So if we were going to go together, either we had to take the kids with us or we just didn't get to go. So playing D&D at home was something we could do together. However, it's also true that there was a lot of sacrifice. The kids' mom had to constantly get up and down throughout the game to feed the kids, get them dinner, get them settled in, put them to bed, right? We had to take breaks for all kinds of things. Sometimes I had to take breaks to take care of the kids. These are big things. And you are correct that it also cuts into session prep. There's work, there's kids, there's all kinds of things. So all the more reason why you deserve to take the sanctity, the value of your game very, very seriously, and you deserve to protect it from people who do not respect it. Because if you are doing the session prep for these long sessions and you're dealing with kids and all of other life's responsibilities, and you care a lot, and you show up and you have other players who care about it too, and they make it worth it, and you have a fun time, this makes me feel like you deserve better than what this other player is doing. And it makes me think that maybe it's just not going to work out. It sounds like you deserve more respect as a GM than what this player is giving you. And personally, if it were up to me, if this were my situation, I would probably have a talk with that player and say, hey, I care about you so much. You're such a cool person, but I don't think that it's working out for D&D. I think that we maybe are a little too different. I think I really care about this game. I don't get a whole lot of time to play. These players don't get a whole lot of time to play. And with the distracting and the not showing up, it just disrupts it too much. I think that maybe you might want to find a more casual game, and I think that parting ways in this is probably best. Not that I want to stop being your friend, but I do think that maybe playing D&D together probably isn't the best for me moving forward. Right? There is nothing wrong with saying that. It does not make you a bad person. It does not make you a mean person, especially if you say it in a kind and nice way. And I have a feeling that that's probably more the direction in your situation where you might want to think about going. But those are the two paths that you could take, and they're not easy paths. But your game deserves respect. Your hard work deserves respect. And even though it is a game and it is for fun, that doesn't mean people should just be allowed to walk in and just take away from it for you and everyone else. It is a creative thing that takes energy and effort, and it is best when everyone is equally committed. And so that's just how it is. That's how it is. Sounds like you have an awesome game. Sounds like this other player, in not listening to you, trying to give them guidance, sounds like they're going to miss out on it. And fair enough. 'Tis the way of the world. 'Tis the way of the world. You don't pay your mortgage. You don't keep your house. You don't pay your car payment. You don't keep your car. Don't show up and put in the work for D&D. Probably not going to be in the group for very long. 'Tis the way of the world, and that is all right. And there's nothing wrong with that. And the truth is that humans who are committed to it deserve to be in it with other humans who are committed. And the people who aren't committed, and they're just going to take away from it, probably not fair that they should think that they just deserve to be there just because they want to be. So there you go. There's my 2 cents on the matter. Let me know what you think. Drop me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Thank you so much for coming back for another video. I'm here almost every day, publishing videos about the best game in the world, D&D, talking to awesome D&D players like you. So give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. And hey, I will see all of you on the next one.